Royce to 59 joins me now live in Studio Q. Welcome to the show.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well.
Thank you for having me, man.
First off, congrats on your first Billboard #1 rap album.
Thank you.
We want to get into everything that's going on with this project, but first I need you to take us back to that day, December 29th, 1997. How do you remember that day playing out for you?
Most significant day in my life. One crazy part about that you didn't say is that my granny passed, but it was also in the same hospital that they probably heard it in the song.
And your grandmother she doesn't live near that hospital.
She was on her way home from church and she got in a car accident. And another part that I left out of the song was she was hit by a drunk driver. Yeah, she was hit by a drunk driver. She was killed by a drunk driver. It was like a big ordeal. But that happened in the same hospital that my son was born. My first son was born. It was actually, him being born was actually my first reason to start taking anything serious. I was one of those kids who just liked to play basketball. I had like a lot of jobs, but I was just working jobs just to pay for studio time. Because I was rapping as a hobby. It was something that I liked doing. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't to the point yet where I was thinking career, So, and then, until I got sober, that was when I started to reflect and think about this day. And I realized how significant it was that I met Marshall this day and how significant he was in my career, the role that he played in my career, and also the role that he played in my sobriety as well. He's a very important person in my life.
I want to get into all of this. The song has the vivid details of the events that you just described. But what do you remember about the feeling of grappling with birth and death in the same day?
I was a little bit young to really be able to take in. I just remember really trying to avoid how much pain my girl was in. It was my first time ever really being around for the delivery of a baby. My youngest sister, my mom got pregnant when I was like in high school. My youngest sister, I wasn't in the room, but I was outside of the room, and I remember my mom having a cesarean. That was like the closest that I've ever came to that. So being in a room with a lady and you holding her hand and she's in all of this pain, and then you're hearing all of the jargon, the dilated 5 centimeters, dilated this and that, and then it's still it's going on, and then you also got it going on. You got something else going on the 5th floor, and it's
that's where your granny was.
That's where my granny was. Yeah. So my entire mom's side of the family was on that floor. You know what I mean? So I had to keep going down there to get updates. Because she was still alive. She hadn't passed away yet. So it was like a waiting game.
I'd imagine a lot of adrenaline going on, and one detail we left out is you also performed that night.
Yeah. See, I was performing, and I was actually opening up for a young usher.
Wow.
So Usher was in town. I was opening up for a young usher, and it was a show that I signed a contract to do. So I was totally prepared to just not do the show. But my mom and some other people at the hospital were just like, you should do it. You should go ahead and do it. We'll keep you posted on everything that's going on. You know what I mean?
What do you remember about being on stage with so much going on in the background?
I remember there being a whole lot of young girls. And I was up there with extremely hardcore underground, like hip hop lyrics. I mean, one of the lines that I said was, I spit an acapella verse. That's something you never do in front of just a bunch of kids. And I said, and this is what's crazy, because this line got M's attention. This is the first thing M said when we met that night. The line that I said was, I'm iller than standing in front of a gorilla holding a banana. It's terrible, right? But at that time, for whatever reason, it was good. For some reason, we were going through like our cannabis phase or something. So I said that line, and as soon as I got off the stage, my manager Keno had happened to be just talking to Marshall. I already knew who Marshall was. Mm-hmm. He was making like tons of noise locally.
Marshall Mathers, Eminem.
Yeah, Eminem, yeah. So we had never met, but I knew who he was. Like I had bought the Slim Shady EP and everything. I was already familiar with his music. So him and Keno were talking, and he was like, yo, I want you to meet Eminem. And I was like, yo, what's up, man? I'm a big fan. And he was just like, yo, did you just say I'm iller than standing in front of a gorilla? And it was a cool moment, but it was very hard for me to dial in. You know what I mean?
With everything else that was going on.
I was trying to get out of there. You know what I mean?
So December 29th, 1997, give us a sense of who Eminem was in the music landscape at that time. Slim Shady EP had just come out. He wasn't nearly what he became.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Slim Shady EP was out, And he was making some pretty good noise in Detroit. I mean, the hip hop scene back then in Detroit was really cool. It was really cool, really small. We all knew who each other were. Most of us knew each other. It was kind of like a family, like an extended family. And we had the hip hop shop, we had the Ebony Showcase, we had the C No Lounge, and maybe 3 or 4 more open mics random, you know. And he was just like the messiah of that. Like as far as battling, nobody could beat him. Nobody could beat him. So, you know, it was just like, and we knew that he had been traveling, doing battles abroad. You know what I mean? He was doing his thing on that. But it wasn't until maybe a year later that he signed his deal with Dre. And in between that time, the time I met him and when he went and signed with Dre, we recorded this song called Bad Meets Evil. And that's what he ended up putting on his first album. He wanted to put that, and he ended up making the EP, just a longer version, and turned it into an LP and added more songs to it. So a lot of those songs that were on the EP ended up being on Marshall's first album, the Slim Shady LP.
Okay, I want to circle back to all of this and how this day has played into your whole life and this moment right now. But first, let's hear a little bit more of the new album.
Everybody think a revolution coming. Wanna be involved in the riot. Everybody arguing out here. This how I feel. What in the Jiminy crack of the corner? We picketing board. The here is bigger than war. They sticking and sicking the shit in the food that the niggas consume. So it's hidden in stores. Some shit that can kill your fertility, damage your thinking, limit your ability. Think about that. Now the fact that y'all living is crazy, cause alcoholism got black people tapping out quicker than Savion Glover. And we ain't no avian lovers. We dying each time that the Hennessy pours. Our plugs are the mothers on the other side of our umbilical cords.
That was a taste of America, another song from Layers, the latest album from my guest right now, Royce da 5'9". You talk about a lot of things on that particular song. You reference alcoholism in Black America in that clip we just heard. Not something we hear a lot about in music, and you've been quite open about your struggles with drinking. What was alcohol giving you personally while you were drinking?
I started drinking when I was 21. And I have an addictive personality already anyway. So I'm not so sure if it was just alcohol. I think it's just the way that I'm wired. I think I'm just an addict by nature, you know, because I still have traits. Like I still got to watch like the cycles in which I eat. I got to try not to overeat. Like if I have like a plate of food, I have to finish it. I have to like literally tell myself, Ryan, you don't have to finish this. You can just eat, you know what I'm saying, until you're just a little bit full. You don't have to eat till you get stuffed. I think my first addiction may have been chewing gum, honestly.
Wow.
Chewing gum in elementary school and middle school. So
it's more of a personality trait that you had to just learn to manage.
It's a personality trait, and then I taught myself that I needed alcohol. So what I would do was, on my way to the studio, going to the store, I had to stop at the store, get liquor. On my way to do interviews, stop at the store, get liquor. Argument with my wife. Hold on, before you yell at me, let me stop, get liquor. You know, so I started using it for everything. And then I started using it to escape, you know, and I didn't realize all these things until I stopped drinking, because I didn't realize all the anxiety problems that I had and all of that stuff until I had to do things without it. And I started having to deal with my problems and just dealing with anything in real time, you know. So I guess if I had to look at it in retrospect, I would say I drank to get away from things, from natural feelings like anxiety and stuff like that.
And you've been sober for 4 years now. What finally got you to change? What kicked that off?
Spiritual awakening is what I like to call it, because I never was in denial. You know, my whole time drinking, that whole 10 years straight that I did it real heavy, I knew I had a problem. I knew it. I knew eventually I was going to have to stop. Everything that you can think of that could go wrong happened to me. Car accidents, jail time. Went to jail for a year for drinking and driving, you know.
So it's not that you didn't know.
It's not that I didn't know. I knew, you know. So
you just needed that catalyst.
I tried a lot of different ways to do it myself too. You know, I did all of the cliche things that alcoholics do, you know, switch to wine, switch to only drinking on weekends, you know, all of the things that you tell yourself to try to convince yourself that, you know, you can handle it yourself. And it wasn't until I woke up one day and I just realized that I was I had to give in. You know what I mean? I had to realize that I was not able to handle this myself. Like I rendered myself helpless over it. And I called Marshall. He's like the first person I called. I said, "Yo, man, I think it's time," because like a month before he told me, just out of nowhere, we was having a conversation like me and you are right now, and then just out of nowhere, he was just like, "Off topic, man. You know, if you ever feel like you got a problem, you know, you can call me, right?" And I was just like, wow.
Wow.
Like that resonated with me because it was like, what made him say that to me? So now am I being viewed by other people like I got a problem?
Well, he's been through his struggles.
Yeah, he went through it first.
So he could probably see something in you that maybe other people couldn't quite see, or maybe they did see. What did he offer you in those conversations? How did that help you?
Well, when I called him, I told him, that it's time. I want to stop and I need his help. And I asked him, what should I do? And he told me, just come home. Just come home. He said, Royce, that's the realest thing you ever said to me. And he was like, this right now, where you are right now, exactly what you're saying to me right now, that you're at your strongest moment. Because we think that we're at our weakest because it's like I'm helpless over this, but it's really like realizing this and having enough courage to admit it is where the strength is at. And I didn't realize that until after. And so he reinforced that to me. And when I went home, he hooked me up with his doctor. I didn't even have health insurance at the time. I had the #1 song on the charts in the world and didn't even have health insurance. So he put me in a hospital with his doctor. I stayed there for 3 days so they could monitor me, just for the alcohol withdrawals. And I hated going to sleep without drinking. That was like the worst thing for me. Like it got that bad. So they monitored me for 2 or 3 days. And then after that, I got out and I never had a drink since. He hooked me up with a therapist and I've been seeing him and we've been talking about it. And that's basically it. I had one tour that I was going to do around that time that I canceled just because I didn't know if I was strong enough to be able to handle it. Now I tour all the time and I do everything that I used to do under the influence, not under the influence.
Well, huge congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And huge congratulations on speaking out about that in conversations like this, but also in your music. I think about yourself. I think about Eminem. I also think about Elzhi, another great lyricist, and another Detroit artist who have all been very forthcoming lately about struggles with anxiety and struggles with things like alcohol and drugs. Is this something all of you talk about? Is this something going on in the scene? Is this another step for you as an artist as well to talk about these things?
Well, it's a step for me as an artist, but it's also a step for me in my sobriety. It really helps me a lot to just get things off my chest, and I kind of learned that through therapy. Therapy helped me to channel these feelings and stuff because I was always one of those guys that were guilty of holding everything in. But once I started going to therapy, man, I just like, if I see Pete, that's my therapist. If I see him on a Wednesday, man, that's like my best day of the week because I got everything off. I got it off my chest. I got it out. You know what I mean? So I started factoring that the same process into the studio. So when the beat comes on, if it's just something on my mind, I like to rap about it.
I was about to ask you how this has affected your process in the studio. Very different than what it must have been before.
I like to rap about it. I like to get it off my chest. And a lot of times I find myself not rapping just to be rapping, which is what I did a lot of when I was drinking all the time because, I wasn't really reflective or introspective feeling. I didn't feel like that. I just wanted to be reckless and live in the moment and rap about rapping and take it back to my roots as an MC. You know what I mean? But, when I got sober, man, I just had a lot to say. A lot to say. A lot of memories just started hitting me that I never thought of in like years. You know what I mean? And as far as just having conversations about it, I talk to Marshall about all of these things all the time. Elzhi, I haven't really had a chance to go deep with him.
Okay.
Because I didn't even realize he struggled with like depression and anxiety until I listened to Lead Poison. And I was like, wow, I'm a cut into...
That's Elzhi's latest album, which is what made me think about this connection between all three of you.
Yeah, but, like Elzhi, like I see him when I go to Cali sometimes. He's not in Detroit. See, Marshall, I see him all the time because he's locked away in one spot all the time. So I know exactly where he is all the time. Elzhi is still like moving around and stuff like that. We'll talk on the phone every now and then, but Marshall I speak to all the time about it.
You mentioned earlier it was like a spiritual awakening for you that set all of this off, and there's spiritual themes on this record, and I hear spiritual themes on the new Chance the Rapper record and the Kanye West record. What are you hoping to offer with that kind of depth on this album? Again, this is just a kind of a pattern I'm seeing around, and especially at a time where we have Black Lives Matter and these sorts of things going on. What are you hoping to offer with this depth and the spiritual themes on this album?
Positivity, like I have to find a balance. I went 10 years straight. I mean, you kind of familiar with my music, man. Like 10 years straight of putting straight negativity into the universe. I'm not trying to be like, the holier than thou guy, the guy who changed his life and now I'm judging everybody. I still make edgy music. But I've had so many things happen to me that's humbled me to the point where I feel like there has to be a balance, so I have to slide messages in there. And even if it's not all through and throughout my music, it has to be in the way that I carry myself. It has to be what I talk about in my interviews, the way that I treat people. Like, it has to be everything. It has to be a full thing because, I'm real big on the way that the universe works, man.
Has
that out of it what you put into it.
Has that come out of your therapy sessions as well, that new outlook?
Yeah. And just being sober, looking at everything for what it is, without the Patron Silver goggles on. It's very obvious. I feel like it's right in front of us. It's right in front of us, and a lot of people don't pay it attention, for whatever reason.
Royce, you've said you're on a mission to solidify your spot as one of rap's great lyricists.
Yeah.
In your mind, what makes a rapper a great lyricist?
Technique is a big thing with me. And I think that it boils down to a matter of opinion. It's what you want to hear. Me personally, I'm cut from the cloth of the old school. The way Rakim put together syllables, the way he connected syllables, it did something to me as a youth. It changed my life. You know what I mean? Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, and then Marshall ultimately came and perfected it. It went from Kane, Rakim, Coogee Rap. Big Pun was a big syllable guy. I think a MC who can mix a lot of techniques, the complex syllables, the punchlines, the storytelling, somebody who can do it all. And then when you talk about somebody who can put that on a major platform and sell it to the masses, then you're talking about high level MC, Jay-Z, Eminem.
I want to ask you about Detroit in particular. I brought up yourself, Eminem, Elzhi. Why are you all so good? What is it about Detroit that makes lyrical technique and a focus on the skill of lyricism so big there?
The only thing I can think of, man, is that we're all from the hip hop shop. We're all from, like, that Detroit scene was I didn't learn a lot of these techniques until I got around guys like Elzhi, Eminem. I didn't thrive until I started going to the Ebony Showcase. The hip hop shop was first. I was 18 years old. I went in there.
And that's one specific location.
One specific location owned by Maurice Malone, the clothing designer. Okay, so he owned this thing on 7 Mile called the Hip Hop Shop, and that basically it was hosted by Big Proof, God rest his soul, and he was passing around the mic, and everybody would get the mic, and they would rap. And if they didn't like your rap, DJ Head would gong you. When I went in there to rap, I got gonged. When I heard Elzhi and Marshall in there rapping, I knew I wasn't that good, like as good as I thought I was. Years later, I started going to the Ebony Showcase, and that's where I thrived at. If it wasn't for the Ebony Showcase, I wouldn't be sitting here right now because I wouldn't have had the confidence to even pursue a career. So I took so many elements and tricks and techniques and stuff that I learned from those guys like Elzhi, Proof, Marshall.
And it's just that local scene,
we all vibe off each
competition,
other.
and you all elevated.
Yeah, we all vibe. Everybody from that era of the hip hop shop went on and got a record deal. Every single person.
Amazing.
Every single person.
Final question to you, Royce. How do you want to continue to push yourself as an artist? You do so many things on this record, cover so many topics. How do you want to continue to push yourself?
I want to continue to keep pulling back layers. I want to break down boundaries as a lyricist. There's a lot of rules and stigmas attached to being good at putting words together. I hear terms like dumb it down being slang around. I think that I'm living proof that you don't have to do that. You just have to be tactful in the way that you do things. My goal now is to cover more ground in these next few years than I have my entire 15-year career.
And I heard you've actually drawn inspiration from Hamilton, the musical.
Yes.
In terms of how to elevate and expand what you're doing.
Yeah, because I basically went in there and got a history lesson on President Hamilton, and I probably learned it in school, but forgot. You know what I mean? Or didn't pay it any attention because it wasn't put to me in a way where it was interesting to me. But for those guys to rhyme it to me, using complex syllables like we talked about, and really good raps, it kept my attention. I was entertained, and I walked out of there like, yo, this is great. It made me want to write a play. That's like one of my goals too. I want to write a play. I want to write a movie. I want to sell more albums. I want to do that until, I'm bored with it. And I want to have as much fun as possible. And like I said, I want to totally trump everything that I've done in my career within the next couple of years.
I look forward to all of it. Thank you, Royce.
Thank you.